And just in time for the long weekend. Thank you so much, Russ. 8:59 here on BT. Today, the federal government focused on how to help seniors through this pandemic. A $2.5 billion aid package is meant to help support roughly 7 million Canadian seniors.
If you're receiving old age security, you will get an additional $300 to offset some of the extra costs you've had to cover because of the virus. This means that across the country, almost 7 million seniors will get help that they need. And to better support the most vulnerable seniors, we will also give an extra $200 to people who are eligible for the Guaranteed Income Supplement. So if you're receiving both OAS and GIS, you will get an additional $500 in total to help you.
As BC's case numbers of COVID-19 remain low, Phase 2 of reopening the economy is set to begin next Tuesday. There are 23 new cases to report since Saturday, and sadly, 1 additional death. Our provincial total is now over 2,300. 130 people have died from COVID-19 in BC. More than 1,700 people have recovered. You may have noticed a lot of people in the parks and on the beaches over the weekend, and so did BC's provincial health officer.
I had the pleasure of getting outside a few times myself this weekend, and I did see lots of people. But you know what? The vast majority of them were in small groups. They were sitting apart from each other. They were socializing. They were out in the sun. You know, I think the vast majority of people are doing the right thing and taking this to heart, and I thank them, because that's how we're going to get through this. And I know everybody, I mean, it was such a spectacular weekend. There was a lot of pressure to just be done with it, but people were reasonable.
Hospital numbers continue to drop in BC. 60 people remain in hospital, 18 in intensive care. The recovery rate is up to 73%. As Canada's provinces continue to reopen slowly, Ottawa has started talks about what a reopened border with the U.S. might look like. BC's provincial health officer says there may be some leeway for family reunification. She says reopening the border to visitors is not in BC's best interest. The ban on non-essential travel between the two countries was put in place in March. It's set to expire next week. Today, Vancouver City councillors are set to debate whether to close more roads to help encourage physical distancing. Our Greg Harper has been following this story all morning and joins us now. And Greg, the Stanley Park closure, that received national recognition, so who knows?
Yeah, it did. It remains car-free, Mary. And Beach Avenue, as you can see behind me, the eastbound lane here remains closed, only accessible for pedestrians and cyclists. Definitely easier to practice physical distancing along this stretch of road in the city. And there goes a cyclist right now behind us. But should the city consider opening up, or pardon me, closing more roadways in the city? Well, Vancouver City councillors will debate this later on this morning. They're doing it virtually, as they have been doing since the pandemic began. Lisa Dominato is the Vancouver City Council that's putting forward the motion, asking the city to consider looking at other possible areas in the city where they could close the road to allow for more cyclists and pedestrians with no vehicle traffic. Just south of us in Washington State, in Seattle, they've closed roughly 32 kilometers of road there as they deal with, that's how they try and deal with COVID-19 in Washington State. So should the city close more areas in the city? Here's what you're saying.
There's no one down here. On a sunny day when I'm running down here, I have to dodge so many people, right? Today it's just straight running, no worries. So closing off roads in the main area, no. I don't think it's necessary at all.
I think it's a good idea during the virus shutdown. I don't have a view, obviously, if the streets are full of traffic. That's for the experts to figure out.
I understand why, and I don't mind it. It's the they took away the permit parking, so if anyone, but then the tricky part's always trying to find permit parking in there. But I don't mind that they've closed it down. It's just the parking they've taken away.
What's interesting here is if Phase 2 of the province's restart plan, if that kicks in after the May long weekend and we see a number of businesses open up the doors again, we may potentially see more roadways in the city of Vancouver close. We'll have to see what happens today and if this gets moved forward. Mary, over to you.
Yeah, you're right. That might affect some businesses. Okay, thank you so much, Greg. As uncertainty about international travel continues, cruise ship companies are hoping some passengers will set sail this summer. Jonathan Yuma reports.
They need this to happen. They need the revenue.
Grounded planes may be keeping globetrotters from traveling, but the cruise industry is hoping to lure passengers to the high seas, with a couple companies accepting bookings for ships departing as early as August 1st, seeing a surge in interest.
I'm not surprised that there's a very strong urge for the tourism industry to come back to some sense of normal.
But why cruises, which were some of the first indicators the world was facing a global pandemic? An informal Twitter survey shows the vast majority aren't planning on climbing aboard a big boat.
I think most of us would say, wow, you know, cruise ships were a little bit of a epicenter for COVID-19, and it really doesn't make much sense. But I think, you know, what you have to understand is that the cruise ship industry has a niche of very loyal guests who, by and large, will do cruise, and they will not do much else.
For Americans who can drive to a port in Florida, it makes sense.
From us in Canada, we have to take into account getting down there on the flight. So, and, you know, flying has its own challenges.
And the greatest concern is being caught across a border during a pandemic.
Carnival Cruise Lines explains while it has extended a pause in operations through August 31st, the itineraries of 8 ships from 3 ports were not canceled after August 1st. These select number of voyages are not guaranteed to operate, as a variety of contingencies must be in place in advance of any potential sailing. Adding, no one will be left high and dry if the conditions don't allow them to head out, offering a full refund or the option to sail at a later date. But it's not just tourists and the cruise ship industry hoping to set sail. It's a major economic force in eastern and western Canada.
They desperately need this business. I think of all the little shops that thrive on tourism.
Everyone is hoping for a vaccine. And if that vaccine does not come soon enough, I think one of the things that we will see in places like Vancouver and Halifax is a great investment in tourist medical facilities.
Something that could extend into the tourism industry as a whole, well beyond cruise destinations. In Calgary, Jonathan Muma, City News.
Both Canadians and Americans are reporting that spending time in public spaces is nerve-wracking these days. A new poll finds 57% of Canadians say leaving their home causes anxiety. 64% of Americans surveyed feel the same way. 1/3 of people believe it will take 1 to 2 years before things start feeling normal again. According to the Leger poll, more women than men find going out very stressful.
Be happy.
Be happy. I know.
And don't forget to say, I love you.
A special afternoon at the Fleetwood Villa Retirement Community in Surrey. Luella Martin celebrated her 100th birthday, all while social and physical distancing, of course. Her family arranged a 20-vehicle parade while a beaming Luella was seated at the front door, enjoying every minute.
They come from Vernon and Salmon Arm.
Exactly.
Oh.
Well, you only turn 100 once.
I know I have fabulous family.
Yeah.
Just really something.
She was born a preemie, less than 7 pounds. They didn't expect her to live. Her grandma put her in a shoebox with cotton batting, fed her with an eyedropper, kept her on the oven door, and said, if she lives, she lives. If she dies, she dies. She lived to have 11 children. She has 30 grandchildren. She has 47 great-grandchildren. And she has 11 great-great-grandchildren.
Luella says her husband, who died when he was only 43, would have loved to see this. For turning 100 years old, she received a letter from Queen Elizabeth and is very proud of it. All right, speaking of celebrations, we'll send it over to Thor.